My dad said next time just come alone at Easter lunch, and I watched my daughter's face change in real time, and I smiled, finished my plate, drove home, and sent a message that night that made sure there would never be a next time for any of us. My daughter heard every word. That is the thing I need you to understand before anything else. Before the context and the history and the years of accumulation that produced the Easter table. Before the explanation of who my father is and what the family dynamic was and why I had been bringing my daughter to that table for 6 years despite every signal that the table was not built for her. Before all of it, the first fact is this: my daughter Wren was sitting 2 feet to my left when her grandfather looked across the Easter lunch he had hosted in the house where I grew up and told me that next time I should just come alone. She was 9 years old. She heard every word. And I watched her face change. Not slowly. Not the gradual clouding that happens when a child processes something complex over time. The immediate change, the specific movement of a child's face when something lands that she does not have the language for yet but which her body understands completely. The brightness she had walked into that house with, the particular brightness of a 9-year-old dressed in the yellow dress she had chosen herself because it was Easter and Easter was the holiday she associated with color, that brightness went somewhere and was replaced by the specific expression of a child who has just understood that she is the unwanted variable in a room. My father continued eating. My mother looked at her plate. My brother Caleb reached for the bread basket. The table continued. I watched my daughter's face. I picked up my fork. I finished my plate. I smiled at the appropriate moments for the remaining 40 minutes of the lunch. I drove home. And that night I sent a message that I had been composing, in one form or another, for 6 years. Let me tell you about Wren before I tell you about the message, because Wren is the reason the message existed and the reason it said what it said. Wren Calloway is 9 years old and she has her father's coloring and my stubbornness and a quality of attention that her teachers describe in parent-teacher conferences with the specific vocabulary of people who have not fully decided whether what they are observing is remarkable or inconvenient. She pays attention to everything. She remembers everything she pays attention to. She has opinions about her opinions, which is the quality that will serve her enormously as an ADLT and which requires significant management in a 9-year-old. She loves Easter specifically because of the color of it. She had been talking about the yellow dress since February. She had asked me 3 times in the week before the lunch whether Grandpa Raymond's house had a garden this year because last year there had been tulips and she wanted to see if the tulips came back. She had been looking forward to Easter lunch for 6 weeks. She had been looking forward to it with the complete investment of a child who has not yet learned to protect herself from disappointment by managing her anticipation. I had known, for 6 years, that the table she was looking forward to was not built for her. I had brought her anyway, each year, with the specific hope of a person who keeps testing a hypothesis despite accumulating evidence against it, the hope that this year the table would be different, that the family would locate the warmth I knew was available to them because I had seen it directed at other people, at other children, at the grandchildren they found easier to love. Easter 2024 was the last test. My father, Raymond Ashworth, is 67 years old and has been the organizing authority of the Ashworth family for as long as I have been conscious of family having an organizing authority. He is not a cruel man in the dramatic sense. He is a man who has preferences that he has never been required to moderate because the people around him have always moderated themselves to accommodate the preferences. His preference, which I had understood with increasing clarity over the previous 6 years, was for a version of his family that did not include the complexity that Wren represented. Wren was not my husband Marcus's biological child. Marcus and I had been together since Wren was 2 and he had been her father in every functional and legal sense since she was 4, but my father had organized his relationship to Wren around this fact with a consistency that I had watched and named and addressed and watched continue unchanged. The addressing had happened twice. The first time was 4 years ago, at a Christmas gathering, when I had pulled my father aside after watching him interact with Caleb's children, ages 6 and 8 at the time, with the warm, easy grandfather energy that was genuinely in him, and then watched him interact with Wren with the polite surface attention of a man fulfilling an obligation. I had told him directly what I observed and asked him directly what I needed. He had told me I was misreading it. The second time was 2 years ago, when Wren had asked me in the car on the way home from a Thanksgiving whether Grandpa Raymond liked her. She was 7. She had asked the question with the careful directness of a child who has been paying attention and has formed a hypothesis and wants to test it against ADLT information. I had pulled over. I had told her that Grandpa Raymond had a harder time showing warmth than some people and that it was not about her. I had told her this knowing it was partially true and partially the managed version I was offering a 7-year-old because the full version required more than a car on the side of a road. I had called my father that evening. I had told him what Wren had asked and what it told me about what she was observing and what I needed to change. He had said that children were sensitive and that he treated all his grandchildren the same. He did not treat all his grandchildren the same. Caleb's children called him Pop. They climbed on him. They showed him things. He had a specific voice he used with them, a specific warmth register, the voice of a man who found children delightful and expressed the finding. He used a different voice with Ren. Not cold. Not unkind. The voice of a man managing an interaction with a child he felt he owed courtesy to rather than a child he was glad was in the room. Ren had been paying attention for 6 years. Easter lunch. My mother had made the table beautiful. That was real, the effort of it, the centerpiece and the cloth napkins and the specific dishes she made only for Easter that had been the same dishes every Easter since I was a child. The effort of the table was genuine. The effort of the table was the kind of gesture that makes the thing underneath it harder to name because the beauty of the surface becomes an argument against acknowledging the reality of what sits below it. Caleb and his wife Dana were there with their children, Oliver and Maeve, 8 and 10. Marcus was beside me. Ren was on my left in the yellow dress she had been planning since February. The lunch had been going for an hour. Ren had been quiet in the way she was quiet at my parents' house, the managed version of herself, smaller than she was at home, the specific smallness of a child who has learned that a particular room requires her to take up less space. I had been watching her. I had been watching her the way I watched her at every Ashworth family event, the specific alert attention of a parent who is monitoring for the moment they have been dreading and hoping will not come. My father was at the head of the table. His glass of wine. The ease of a man in his own home surrounded by the version of his family he found comfortable. The conversation had moved through the usual stations. Caleb's work. Dana's garden project. Oliver's baseball. Maeve's upcoming recital. Then my father looked at me. Not at Marcus. At me. The drive up wasn't too bad. His voice. The conversational opener that was not about the drive. About 2 hours. My voice. He nodded. His glass moving to his lips. His eyes moving to the centerpiece. You know. His voice. The tone of a man about to deliver something he had been holding. Next time you come, just come alone. It's easier. The table continued. The sounds of Easter lunch in a dining room in a house where I grew up, cutlery and conversation and my mother reaching for the water pitcher, and all of those sounds continuing around the specific silence that had descended in the 2 feet to my left. I turned to look at Ren. Her face. The yellow dress. The brightness that had walked into the house 6 weeks of anticipation bright was gone. What was on her face was the expression I had known was coming and had spent 6 years hoping would not come, the expression of a child who has had the hypothesis she formed at 7 confirmed at 9 in front of a table full of people who continued eating. She was looking at her plate. My father had already moved on. His voice, something about Caleb's project at work. My mother was looking at the centerpiece. Dana had found something to examine in her napkin. Marcus's hand came to my knee under the table. His hand steady and present and communicating something without words. I looked at my daughter's face. I looked at my father. I picked up my fork. I smiled at the appropriate moments. I finished my plate. The drive home was 47 minutes. Ren was in the back seat. Her yellow dress. Her face at the window, the city moving past in the specific way of Easter afternoon, quieter than ordinary Sundays, the quality of a day that has been designated for something. Marcus drove. His eyes on the road. His hands at 10 and 2. Neither of us spoke for the first 20 minutes. Then Ren's voice from the back seat. Quiet. Careful in the specific way of a child who is deciding how much of a thing to say. Grandpa Raymond didn't want me there. Her voice. The car. The Easter afternoon outside the windows. Marcus's hands on the wheel. My hands in my lap. The specific weight of a mother sitting inside the moment she had been dreading and hoping would not come and which had come. You heard what he said. My voice. Not a question. He said next time just come alone. Her voice. He meant without me. My hands in my lap. The 47-minute drive. Yes. My voice. That's what he meant. The silence that followed was not the silence of a conversation ending. It was the silence of a 9-year-old processing an honest answer from her mother who had decided that the managed version was no longer what the situation required. Is it because I'm not actually his granddaughter? Her voice. Marcus's hands tightened slightly on the wheel. My hands in my lap. I think so. My voice. I think he has difficulty extending his love beyond the boundaries of what he considers his family by odd. But I'm your daughter. Her voice. Yes. My voice. You are completely and entirely my daughter. And you're his daughter. Her voice. Yes. My voice. A pause. The city outside the window. Then that doesn't make sense. Her voice. The 9-year-old logic of it, the clear and unassailable reasoning of a child who has not yet learned to accommodate the illogical premises of ad lt smallness. No. My voice. It doesn't. We drove the rest of the way in the specific quiet of people who have said the true thing and are letting it exist without filling it with management. At home, Ren went upstairs and I heard her moving around in her room. Not crying. Just moving. The sounds of a child returning to her space. I stood in the kitchen. Marcus stood beside me. Tonight. My voice. Quiet. Tonight. His voice. The acknowledgement of a man who had been waiting for this decision and knew it had been made. I went upstairs. I sat with Ren for 40 minutes. We did not talk about Easter. We talked about the tulips, which had come back, which she had noted before lunch, and about the yellow dress which she said she still liked and wanted to wear to Petra's birthday next month. I said the yellow dress was excellent and Petra's birthday was going to be a perfect occasion for it. She fell asleep at 9:15. I went downstairs. I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop. I opened a new message. The message took 40 minutes to write. Not because I did not know what to say. Because I knew exactly what to say and I wanted to say it with the precision it deserved, without anger and without the performance of anger, without the language that invites debate because it has edges that can be argued against. I wanted to write the message that was accurate. That was the only standard I applied to every sentence. Is this accurate? When I was finished, I read it through twice. Then I sent it to my father. I copied my mother. I closed the laptop. The message was the cliffhanger not because of what it said but because of what it ended. What it ended was 6 years. What it produced in the morning was something I had not fully anticipated, even though I had anticipated everything else. My father called at 7:42 in the morning. I was in the kitchen. Ren was upstairs getting ready for school, the specific sounds of a Monday morning that did not know it was the first Monday of a different version of things. The school lunch on the counter. The coffee in my hand. His name on my phone screen. I let it ring. He called again at 7:51. I let it ring. He did not leave a voicemail either time, which told me something about his relationship to being required to say things without a live audience to respond to. My mother called at 8:15, after Ren had been dropped at school and I was back at the kitchen table with the second coffee. I picked up. Her voice had the quality of a woman who had received something the previous evening and had spent the night deciding how to navigate the morning. Your father is very upset. Her voice. My coffee. The kitchen. The Monday morning light. I imagine he is. My voice. Even. He feels you were unfair in how you characterized. Mom. My voice. Interrupting with the specific patience of a person who had anticipated this opening and had decided not to let it proceed. I want to tell you what I wrote in the message and I want you to tell me which part is inaccurate. A pause. I wrote that for 6 years I had watched Dad treat Ren differently from Caleb's children. I wrote that I had addressed this with him directly twice and received no change. I wrote that yesterday at Easter lunch in front of my daughter, her grandfather told me that next time I should come alone, which my 9-year-old daughter heard and correctly interpreted as her grandfather not wanting her present. A pause. I wrote that I would not be bringing Ren to any Ashworth family event where the experience of the previous 6 years gave me reason to believe she would be made to feel unwanted. And I wrote that this was not a negotiating position. My mother was quiet. That is what I wrote. My voice. Tell me which part is inaccurate. The silence on her end had a different quality from the silence she used when she was managing. This was the silence of a woman sitting inside something she recognized as true and was finding the truth more uncomfortable than she had expected. He didn't mean it the way Ren took it. Her voice. Lower now. He said next time just come alone. My voice. Ren is not an abstract concept. She was sitting 2 feet to my left. She heard every word and she understood exactly what it meant because she is 9 years old and she has been paying attention for 6 years. A pause. What way was she supposed to take it? The silence. He has a hard time. My mother's voice. The stripped-down register. The voice underneath the management. With the situation. He loves you. He doesn't know how to. Mom. My voice. I know it's hard for him. I've been accommodating the difficulty for 6 years. I've been bringing my daughter to a table where she is received as less than her cousins and telling myself that consistency would produce change and watching my daughter make herself smaller every time we walked through that door. A pause. Yesterday she asked me in the car if it was because she wasn't really his granddaughter. She's 9. She has been arriving at that conclusion for 2 years and now she has the confirmation. My mother's breath on the other end. What do you want from us? Her voice. The direct question. The one that mattered. I want Ren to be received as my daughter. My voice. Not managed. Not accommodated. Received. The way Oliver and Eve are received. If that is not something Dad is capable of, then the table is not the right place for her, and I am not going to keep bringing her to it hoping the answer changes. And if he tries? Her voice. If he makes an effort. My coffee going cool. The kitchen. Then the effort will be visible. My voice. And I will evaluate the effort honestly. But I have evaluated effort for 6 years, and what I observed was not effort. What I observed was management, and yesterday it stopped being managed. We said goodbye. Not warmly. Honestly. Caleb called on Wednesday. His voice had the quality of a man who had been briefed and was trying to locate the position that let him be a good brother and a good son simultaneously, and was discovering the positions were not compatible in this specific situation. Dad's really? My kitchen. Wednesday morning. The week having its ordinary texture around the conversation. What did he mean it to come out as? My voice. A pause. He said he just meant it would be easier for you. The drive. Not having to. Caleb. My voice. He said next time just come alone. Ren was sitting 2 feet to my left. If he meant something other than what every person at that table understood him to mean, the correction needed to happen in the next 30 seconds. It did not happen. The table continued. His breath. She's a kid. His voice. She probably didn't. She asked me in the car if it was because she wasn't really his granddaughter. My voice. She's 9. She has her own hypothesis about why Grandpa Raymond is different with her. She was testing it against what he said, and he confirmed it. A longer silence. I don't think he means to make her feel that way. His voice. I know you don't think that. My voice. And the intention is noted. But Ren doesn't experience his intention. She experiences his behavior. And his behavior for 6 years has told her something about her place in this family that I am not going to keep asking her to reinterpret. Caleb was quiet. So you're just not coming anymore? His voice. I'm not bringing Ren to events where the previous 6 years give me reason to believe she will leave feeling like she doesn't belong. My voice. That's the accurate version. What about Christmas? Mom's birthday? The family things? His voice. I'll evaluate each one. My voice. I'm not making a permanent declaration. I'm making an accurate assessment of current conditions and behaving accordingly. A pause. Dad's not going to change. His voice. The most honest thing he said in the whole call. The voice of a man who had known his father for 38 years and was reporting rather than defending. I know. My voice. That's why I'm not waiting for him to. My father sent a message on Thursday. Not a call. A message. 3 sentences. He wrote that he was sorry if his comment had been misunderstood. He wrote that he had always cared for Ren's well-being. He wrote that he hoped we could move past this as a family. I read it twice. 3 things about the message were precise in their way. The sorry if told me the apology was conditional on my interpretation rather than on the thing itself. The cared for well-being was the language of a man describing an obligation he had met rather than a relationship he had built. The move past as a family was the request to return to the surface without addressing what was under it. I replied with 1 sentence. I told him I appreciated the message and that I would be in touch when I had something useful to say. I put the phone down. Ren came home from school on Thursday with the specific energy she had when something had happened that she was processing. She put her bag down and went to the kitchen and poured herself water and stood at the counter. I was at the table. Her water glass. Her back to me. Then she turned around. Grandpa Raymond texted you. Her voice. Not a question. She had the specific awareness of a child who tracked the emotional weather of her household. Yes. My voice. What did he say? Her voice. My hands on the table. He said he was sorry if his comment had been misunderstood. My voice. She looked at her water glass. That's not really an apology. Her voice. 9 years old. No. My voice. It isn't. She looked at me. Are we going back? Her voice. The direct question. The question she had the right to ask and that I had the responsibility to answer honestly. Not right now. My voice. And not until I have a reason to believe it would be different. She turned her water glass on the counter. Once. The small movement of a child thinking. I don't want to go back if it's going to be the same. Her voice. I know. My voice. It won't be. She picked up her water glass and went to do her homework. I sat at the table and felt the specific thing that was not relief and was not grief but occupied the territory between them, the feeling of a person who has finally done the thing that cost something and is living in the first days of having done it. Marcus and I talked that evening after Ren was asleep. The kitchen table, the same table where I had written the message 4 days earlier. His hands around a cup. Mine around mine. She's processing it better than I expected. His voice. She's been processing it for 2 years. My voice. She just didn't have confirmation. His eyes on the cup. Then on me. The yellow dress. His voice. I know. My voice. She still wants to wear it to Petra's birthday. His voice. She told me. My voice. He looked at me with the expression of a man who had been beside me for 7 years and had watched me navigate things and was watching me navigate this one, had something to say and was deciding whether to say it. Say it. My voice. You handled it right. His voice. All of it. The lunch and the drive and the message and this week. A pause. I know you've been carrying the guilt about not doing it sooner. My hands around my cup. 6 years of Easter lunches. My voice. 6 years of trying. His voice. That's different from 6 years of ignoring it. She was 7 when she asked me if he liked her. My voice. That was 2 years ago. Yes. His voice. And you pulled over and told her the truth. And you called him that night. And he didn't change. And you kept trying because you were hoping the table would become what it needed to be. A pause. That's not a failure. That's a person who believed in the possibility of change longer than the evidence warranted. My cup. The kitchen. The house quiet around us. The yellow dress. My voice again. The yellow dress is going to Petra's birthday. His voice. And it's going to be the right place for it. It has been 6 weeks since Easter. Ren wore the yellow dress to Petra's 9th birthday party and came home with the specific brightness she had walked into my parents' house with 6 weeks earlier, the brightness that had lasted the whole party and was still present at bedtime and which I noted and held as the evidence it was. My parents and I have been in limited contact. My mother calls once a week. The calls are careful and shorter than they used to be and more honest than most of the calls in the previous 6 years when we were performing a warmth that required both of us to not address certain things. My father has not called again. The message on Thursday was the last direct communication. I have not required more from him and I have not offered more to him, and the space between those two decisions is the accurate description of where we are. Caleb came for dinner 2 weeks ago. Without his parents. Without an agenda. He sat at my kitchen table and he held Ren's drawing she showed him and he said the right things about it, and he was present in the way he sometimes was when the family architecture was not in the room requiring him to occupy his position within it. He stayed for 3 hours. When he left he hugged me in the doorway and held it. I should have said something at the table. His voice. Low. His coat on. The doorway. My hands. The doorway. Yes. My voice. You should have. I know. His voice. I'm sorry. I know you are. My voice. Come back for dinner. Come often. He nodded. He went. Here is what I know about the moment my daughter's face changed. I have thought about it many times in the 6 weeks since Easter. Not with the specific anguish of a parent who believes they failed, but with a clear-eyed accounting of a person who is trying to understand it accurately. I brought Ren to that table for 6 years. Some of those years she was too young to fully understand what she was observing. Some of those years she understood it partially. For the last 2 she has been building an accurate hypothesis and testing it against the available evidence. Easter 2024 was the last data point she needed. What I could have done differently was respond to her car question 2 years ago, not just with the pulled-over honesty of a parent explaining an ADLT's limitation, but with the decision I made 6 weeks ago. I could have made that decision at 7 years old rather than 9. I did not. I held the hope that the table would change because I loved the people at the table, and I did not want to accept that love and the capacity to extend it are not always the same thing. They are not always the same thing. My father loves me. I believe this in the uncomplicated way that children believe the love of parents regardless of the evidence that the love has limits. The love is real and it has a limit, and the limit is visible at Easter lunch when a 9-year-old in a yellow dress is sitting 2 feet to her mother's left and her grandfather says, "Next time just come alone." I finished my plate. I drove home. I sent the message. And the most important thing I did was not the message. It was pulling over when she was 7 and telling her the honest version. It was the car ride home when she said it didn't make sense, and I said no, it doesn't. It was the conversation at the kitchen table when she said that's not really an apology, and I said no, it isn't. What I gave my daughter in all of those moments was the same thing. I gave her the confirmation that her own perception was accurate. That she was not misreading the room. That her hypothesis was correct and her reasoning was sound and the world was exactly as she had observed it to be, which is disappointing, but which is real. Children who are told their accurate perceptions are inaccurate grow into adults who do not trust what they see. My daughter is not going to be that adult. She is going to be the 9-year-old who wears the yellow dress to the right birthday party and comes home with the brightness intact and says that wasn't really an apology and knows she is right and knows I will tell her she is right when she is. The table did not change. I changed what I did about the table. And if your child has ever looked at you from 2 feet away with a face that has gone from bright to something else and you are still sitting there finishing your plate and wondering if this is the time to say something, understand this: the time was the last time, and the time before that, and the time before that, and every moment between then and now in which the accurate thing went unsaid while the child kept building the hypothesis from the available evidence. Say the accurate thing. Pull over. And make sure the yellow dress finds the room that deserves it.